Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Kmart, and I want to talk about some basketball. And today, we are moving forward with our early off-season preview series, asking a couple of questions here for each and every squad in the NBA as we move into the off-season and prepare for the 2023-2024 campaign. And today, we are going to be taking a look at one of the top seeds in the Western Conference. We are looking at the Memphis Grizzlies here, a team that thought that they were on the rise and have been ever so slightly derailed over the past couple of months. They lose in the first round of the playoffs, obviously in a situation where they thought they were set up for a deep run. Now they're dealing with issues of Ja Morant not being available because of off-the-court shenanigans, so things got weird in Memphis. You go from feeling like you're a rising team, one of the best in your conference, maybe one of the best in the league, to suddenly having all these questions that you need to answer almost immediately. So, rough situation, but we're going to dive into it. We'll take a look at the Grizzlies stats here up on the screen. In terms of their regular season record, they were 51 and 31. That was good enough for the second seed in the Western Conference, and obviously for the Grizzlies, won them their division. They were Southwest Division champions, so they get a nice little banner to hang in their arena. Always nice to see those divisional winner banners up there. In terms of the playoffs, though, that's where things started to go wrong. A 2-4 record in the playoffs, eliminated in the first round by LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers, and that brought their postseason run to an end. So, not quite what they were hoping for, but there is still some good news as we take a look at the rest of the stats here for the team in terms of their ratings. Pretty solid. Offensive rating, they're sitting at 15th, so quite literally the middle of the league. Defensive rating, though, they were elite. Second by defensive rating in the league. That gave them a net rating of 4th overall. They played with the 5th highest pace in the league, all while having the 27th highest payroll. So we mentioned this a little bit in the Kings video as well, but anytime you have a team that is performing this well without having to break the bank, you're in a pretty damn good position. Of course, we'll see where that payroll goes in the future, but for now at least, they were able to post some pretty solid results on a bit of a budget. So, never a bad thing to be able to play well for cheap as we take a look at some of the off-season moves for the Grizzlies so far. In terms of additions to this lineup, they were able to grab a couple of guys in the draft, Gregory Jackson II and Tarek Biberovic. I hope that's correct. But those are two guys they picked up in the draft. Then, of course, they traded for Marcus Smart from Boston. They were able to sneak into that three-team trade with the Celtics and the Wizards when the Clippers sort of dropped out of that deal. So they sneak in, they get Marcus Smart as an addition to their roster. In terms of losses, as of right now, it's just Tyus Jones. He was the player that went outwards in that Marcus Smart trade. They sent him to Washington. I suppose technically speaking, we could probably put Dylan Brooks on this list as well. As of right now, he is a free agent, but as you probably know, the Grizzlies did put out that statement that included the phrase that they didn't want him back under any circumstances. So, it's not exactly legally binding. They could change their mind and still bring him back, which is part of the reason why I didn't put him on the losses column, because technically he is just an unrestricted free agent, but effectively he could be in that slot. But either way, Tyus Jones is the only, I believe, official player that has been moved off of this Grizzlies lineup so far. So, with that being said, time to get into some questions here for the Grizzlies. And the first question is the most obvious one possible. That question being, how do the Grizzlies approach the start of the season without Ja? So, in case you haven't heard, Ja Morant has been suspended for the first 25 games of the season. I don't know if there's any sort of appeal process going on or something there. I think the Players Association is looking into it, but as of now, there's been no movement on that 25 games, which means the Grizzlies will have to survive effectively the first quarter of their season without their star player. Now, my first thoughts when I heard about the suspension was that we saw the Grizzlies hold their own and then some before in previous seasons when Ja was sort of out with his injury and then his sort of kind of pseudo suspension when he spent like 3 days away from the team for the first social media gun incident. But the thing to note here is that this is going to be a significantly longer length of time. When Ja was out before with the injuries, with the rehab, finding himself, whatever that thing was, that was nowhere near 25 games, right? It was a significantly shorter period of time. So yes, the team was able to hold. Yes, the team was still able to put wins on the board during that time frame. But 25 games is a long time to go to try and hold the line for this roster. But there is good news. If you're the Grizzlies, between Desmond Bane, who is still on the roster, and the newly added Marcus Smart, your backcourt's still going to have some firepower, right? Those are a pair of guys who can play some good defense, who can score points when needed. So on the offensive end, I think they'll be good. On the defensive end, Desmond Bane is not an absolute lockdown defender, but Marcus Smart does have more of that sort of reputation. So I think they'll have the ability to be just as good, if not better, on the defensive end, at least among their guard core. So that should be okay. And if all goes well here for the Grizzlies, Desmond Bane and Marcus Smart can hold the line from the guards, both offensively and defensively, then I think the Grizzlies just survive. I don't think they're going to be near the top of the league through those first 25 games, but if they can go at or close to 500 through those first 25, then I think they're fine. Ja comes back. He may need a little bit of time to get his legs back under him, but then I think they transition back into the same team that we saw before. So, 25 games, go out, win at least 8 to 10 of those, and then I think the rest is salvageable over the course of a season. And maybe you don't get the 2 seed again, but you can definitely get yourself back to the playoffs at a much lower seed, but it'll be doable, and they will have survived that suspension. So that's got to be the game plan. Of course, it could be wrong. This new Grizzlies lineup could go out and just absolutely decimate everyone through those first 25 games, and instead of Ja coming back and you needing to catch up, Ja just comes back to a team that's already sort of, top 5, top 6, and they just keep on going from there. But those are the best case scenarios. Those are the positives for the Grizzlies. That's the outcome that the team and their fans have to be hoping for. So we'll see how that plays out with Ja gone for 25. But that leads us into question number 2 here. That question being, can the Grizzlies keep up their defensive effort next season? So we mentioned when we were sort of looking over the stats in the regular season, they were the 15th best team by offensive rating. They were the second best team by defensive rating. So they had one of the best defenses in the league. We'll put up some of their defensive stats on the screen right now. They held opponents to the lowest field goal percentage in the league, 45.3% shooting. They out-rebounded their opponents by an average of 2.2 rebounds per game, which I know 2.2 doesn't sound great, but that's the average, right? So on average, no team ever out-rebounded them. That's pretty damn impressive in today's league. They were third in the league in both steals, averaging 8.3 per game as a team, and block shots, where they averaged 5.8 per game. And they just generally made life unbelievably difficult for the opposing team. One of the big reasons for that is because the front court for the Grizzlies is incredible, right? Your front court defense is anchored by guys like Jaren Jackson Jr., Steven Adams as your sort of 2 big headliners. But even looking at the rotational pieces, Zaire Williams, Santi Aldama, Xavier Tillman, they've all got sort of length, they've got reach, they've got, for the most part, a lot of mobility as well. So they just make it a nightmare to operate in the paint against the Grizzlies. You're going to have a hard time trying to play inside against this team. And the good news for the Grizzlies, all of those guys that I just named, almost all of them are coming back, right? Jaren Jackson Jr. is still there. Zaire Williams and Aldama, I think, will be there. I believe Xavier Tillman is a free agent, so his status is a little bit iffy. And then Steven Adams should be coming off of his injury and should be healthy to play for the next season. So if they all come back and they're all healthy, then the interior defense for the Grizzlies will continue to be absolutely elite. And, well, we saw what happened when they played a full season. Very few teams were willing to sort of go up against them. The potential issue here for the Grizzlies, if the sort of down low defense is fine, if your front court is locked down, will be the back court, will be the guard core, sort of what they're looking at there. And that's where we get back to the issue of Ja being suspended for 25 games. Ja Morant is incredibly talented on the offensive end, not quite as known for his defense compared to his offense, but that's not because he's a bad defender. It's just because he's so good on the offensive side. But he's out for 25. Dillon Brooks is no longer with the team, which, say what you will about some sort of clowny off the court antics, he was still a very strong defender. And for the start of the season, they will have neither of those two players. So this is part of the reason why they went out and targeted Marcus Smart with that trade. They knew at the start of this season that the defense on the perimeter was going to be a potential weakness for them. So they go out and make a move to directly address that. They get Marcus Smart. They're going to have to hope that Desmond Bane will up his defensive effort as well. So I think that's the best that you could really do, right? Go out and get Marcus Smart. Because if the interior defense holds up, as I suspect it will, considering they've got all of their guys coming back, and Marcus Smart doesn't suddenly regress massively as a defender, which also seems unlikely, then Memphis should be in line to have another elite defensive season. I don't know if they'll get second again, but if I had to guess, with so much of their defense remaining with this roster, they probably won't have too many issues staying in the top 5. So defensively, they had a question when Ja went out, when they lost Dillon Brooks. They have answered that question, and they should be fine moving forward. But that leads us to question number 3. And that question is, should the Memphis Grizzlies extend Desmond Bane? Now, here's the thing. The quick answer to this question is yes, absolutely. Of course they should. It would be kind of strange if they didn't, right? Desmond Bane has been absolutely phenomenal for this team over the past couple of seasons, and I personally think he has done more than enough to prove that he should be considered a core part of this squad for the next few years, right? Ja Morant is obviously the guy who steals headlines, for better or for worse, but in terms of the play, Desmond Bane has been almost as important to the Grizzlies' success here. His scoring load has gone up dramatically year over year. He has also been able to improve both his assist and rebounding averages in each of his first 3 seasons. That is almost unheard of, to just consistently progress and improve through your first couple of campaigns in the way that he has. So he has quite literally only gotten better since he entered the league. But here's where we get to maybe a slight concern for Bane. The cap situation for the Grizzlies isn't fantastic going into the next season. They do have some money sort of already committed in places, but honestly, I don't think that should matter. I think extending Bane should be a priority for that team. I don't expect them to have much turnover compared to last season. We talked about that with the previous point. A lot of their guys are coming back, so unless you're making a big trade, your cap situation shouldn't fluctuate massively. They should know where they stand in terms of how much money that they have, which means they should also know where they stand in terms of being able to afford the extension for Desmond Bane, and I think that they really should prioritize locking him down long term, especially considering the fact that Dillon Brooks is no longer there. His contract wasn't massive, but it's no longer on the books. So that's a little bit of money gone, and that's a little bit of their offensive firepower gone as well, because Brooks was averaging a decent amount of points. You then factor in, of course, again, that Ja Morant is going to miss the first 25 games of the season, and there are going to be a lot more eyes on Desmond Bane here at the start of this campaign. Previously, it seemed the way the hierarchy kind of worked in terms of scoring was that Ja was 1, Bane was 2, and Dillon Brooks was 3, right? Well, Dillon Brooks is gone, so the number 3 option isn't there. Ja Morant's going to miss 25 games, so for the first quarter of your season, the number 1 option is not there. So, looking at it at the moment, the offensive pecking order for the Grizzlies is Desmond Bane at 1, and then someone at 2. Not clear who it's going to be just yet. My best bet would probably be on Jaren Jackson Jr., but we don't know that for sure. But Desmond Bane is at the top right now until Ja returns, so he's going to have a chance to go out and prove again if he can go out and put up the same numbers that he has been putting up and improving upon pretty much every year since he entered the league. And if you're the Grizzlies with so many extra eyes on this guy, because he is now going to be the number 1 option for the first few months, now would be the time to give him that extension, to lock him up for the future so that this time next year, the Grizzlies aren't in the middle of a bidding war for one of their best players. So, if they've got the money, what else are you going to spend it on? Lock Bane down, get him on your roster for the next 4 to 5, and be happy with that. If he drops off the face of the earth after and his numbers suddenly dip, fine, you've made a mistake. But I don't really think that's going to happen based on the way we've seen him play through these first 3 seasons. So we'll see if the Grizzlies value Desmond Bane to the point that, or to the extent that I think they should. But that is it for the Grizzlies. I know a lot of the talk revolved around Ja Morant, but that's by design. The Grizzlies really are and have been building their team around Ja, so the fact that he is suspended is going to sort of have that branching effect, and it will hit every other facet of this team in the offseason. There's just no getting around it. When you have a player as sort of big and as influential in the organization as him, that influence will be felt everywhere else. But those are my thoughts on the Grizzlies here for the offseason. Let me know what you think. Do you think that they're going to be okay on the defensive end? What did you think of the Marcus Smart trade? I thought it was pretty damn smart for them. I know. I'm sorry. I immediately regret making the pun, but it had to be done. And yeah, do you think they should extend Desmond Bane as well? Do you think that he is the priority for them moving forward? But let me know your thoughts. Other than that, though, thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you later.